Despite Planet of the Monsters providing a rather rocky start to the anime trilogy, its final moments gave hope that the next chapter would mark a substantial improvement and move the story in a more interesting direction. And fans didn't have long to wait to find out. 6 months later, City on the Edge of Battle was released, which promised to continue the journey of Haruo while bringing Mechagodzilla into the fray, whom was merely teased in the prior film. Fortunately, the middle chapter does improve significantly on its predecessor, though it also continues to make many of the same mistakes. Godzilla's devastating attack has left Haruo and the survivors stranded on Earth, where they are aided by a strange indigenous people calling themselves the Hotua. Through them, they discover that Mechagodzilla, thought lost, is still operational and has evolved into an entire city through its ever-expanding nanometal technology. With the now christened Mechagodzilla City now under their control, plans resume to kill Godzilla. But when the existential threat of the nanometal becomes more apparent, Haruo may have to choose between his goal of ridding humanity of Godzilla and humanity itself.
The city will not only consume Godzilla, but everything else as well. Its propagation will not stop until it has consumed the entire Earth.
There is no denying that City on the Edge of Battle is a better film than Planet of the Monsters. With all the setup out of the way, it finally feels like the story is beginning proper. And with the cast of characters reduced to a handful, individuals whom prior were lost in the shuffle now stand out and are given more to do. This is not to say that it is completely rid of the same issues that plagued the first chapter, far from it in fact. But with a clear mission and a better, more philosophically character-driven story, it doesn't drag or bore nearly as much. In fact, there are moments and plot developments that are quite inspired, if not still disappointing if you were expecting your typical kaiju action. Indeed, much like how Godzilla was altered substantially for these films, so too was Mechagodzilla, only even more so. So radically different is this interpretation that it can't even be labeled as Mechagodzilla proper, and thus those hoping to see it here will be severely frustrated. Constructed from the insidiously named nanometal of the perversely logical Belu-Elu, it has constructed an entire city around its remains, becoming a symbolic fortress of the all-consuming nature of human technology. Uncomfortably cold and empty, it is juxtaposed to the warm and inviting lair of the Hotua, the ancestors of mankind whom have evolved to survive and coexist with a planet dominated by Godzilla. These are interesting new spins on the franchise's most classic elements that develop the world a lot better than the first film, and thus make for a far more engaging story.
You mean the two of them are twins?
However, City on the Edge of Battle is still hampered by an over-reliance on scientific technobabble. While better balanced here, it still takes up too much of the runtime which could be better used to develop the characters more. Thankfully, the character who sees the most positive development is Haruo. No longer an obnoxious, angry anime boy, here he is more contemplative and self-reflective. While still obsessed with killing Godzilla, Haruo's more mellow approach makes him less overbearing, and thus more likable. Yuko is also given more to do, though she is still mostly relegated to love interest. The Exif and Belu-Elu are both more clearly defined at this time, with the logic by all means approach of the latter becoming the main dramatic conflict that drives the final act. This gives the film's climax more meaning, even if it feels like a repeat of the last film.
All monsters are called monsters, because they cannot be defeated by people.
City on the Edge of Battle continues with the same style of animation, and the strengths and weaknesses remain as well. There are shots and images of utter beauty, and the way in which the 3D is shaded and colored to resemble traditional 2D is both uniquely appealing and oddly distracting. It mostly works, but there are times when the human characters don't look or move quite right. What is flawless though is the sound design. Everything from the subtle clicking of a hologram to the thunderous movement of Godzilla has a heft to it that sells the believability of the world. The music by Takahiro Hattori is still just as good, and with better material to accompany it this time, it stands out all the more, even going so far as to throw in some 80s style techno synth to shake things up. It's still not at all what most fans probably want, but taken for what it is, City on the Edge of Battle isn't half bad, and is a much better film than its fledgling predecessor. It's still rather dull in certain aspects, and Godzilla is as much of an afterthought as ever, but character development and world building are a bit more nuanced, and though not exactly original, there are some genuinely intriguing ideas at play that are very much in line with what the franchise has always been about. It's definitely not for everyone, so your mileage may vary, but if you can get past the lackluster first film and go in with an open mind, you'll find an extremely flawed, idea-driven film that adds some unusual twists to the Godzilla mythology. For more reviews and opinions on all things Godzilla, subscribe and stay tuned to Up From the Depths.